Welcome back to Mysteries Crime Stories, the channel where we dive into the darkest crimes, the strangest cases, and the mysteries that have haunted generations. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe so you never miss these mysteries. Tell us in the comments what you think about the cases we cover, what you'd like to see in future videos, and share this story with anyone who would find it important. Now, let's begin. The autumn of 1986 was supposed to be like any other in Brighton. Children played in the fading light of early evenings, parents called them home as the air grew colder and the ordinary rhythm of life continued. But on one October night, the innocence of a seaside community was shattered forever. 9-year-olds Nicola and Karen Hadaway had gone out to play, like countless times before. Their laughter was heard echoing through Wild Park, a wooded area not far from their homes. But as darkness descended, the girls never came back. When their families went searching, dread slowly crept in. Hours later, the unthinkable unfolded. Nicola and Karen were found brutally murdered in the woods. The case became known as the Babes in the Wood murders, and the shock reverberated far beyond Brighton. These were children, two best friends, taken in the cruelest way possible. Police quickly focused their suspicions on a man, Russell Bishop, a petty criminal with a violent streak. He was arrested and put on trial. But in 1987, due to errors in evidence handling and doubt sown by his defense, Bishop walked free. Families were left devastated, not only by their loss but by the haunting knowledge that the man they believed responsible was still out there, breathing the same air, living his life. Justice had slipped away. For 4 long years, Bishop blended back into the shadows of Brighton. He walked the streets like any other man, but behind his eyes lingered darkness. And then, in 1990, his violence surfaced again, this time targeting another child. Her name was Rachael. She was 7 years old, full of life, and loved nothing more than roller skating near her home. It was an ordinary day, the kind children live for, filled with play and innocence, but in a heartbeat, everything changed. Bishop lured her away. He led her to a secluded area in the South Downs, where the landscape turned lonely and unforgiving. And there, he unleashed terror. He sexually assaulted and strangled her. When he was finished, he left her body hidden, discarded like she was nothing, certain she would never rise again. But this time, something miraculous happened. Rachael was still breathing. Her small body, battered and broken, clung to life. Somehow, through sheer will, she survived. She awoke in the nightmare, confused, terrified, fighting for breath. Her voice was hoarse, her throat bruised, but she was alive. And that single fact would become the thread that unraveled Bishop's dark world. When rescuers found her, she whispered words that would never leave her lips for decades. "He can't know I'm alive." The fear was unimaginable. For a child so young to recognize the danger, to realize that survival could make her a target, was chilling. Bishop believed he had silenced her forever, but she knew if he discovered she had lived, he would come back to finish what he started. Rachael's testimony was brave beyond measure. Despite her terror, she identified Bishop in a police lineup. Her words carried weight, and in December 1990, he was finally convicted. Not for Nicola and Karen's murders, but for the attempted murder of Rachael. He was sentenced to life in prison. Yet, even then, life carried a cruel irony. His sentence came with a minimum term of just 14 years. The families of Nicola and Karen still saw no justice for their daughters, and Rachael, even though she had survived, knew her nightmare wasn't over. She grew up with the shadows of fear. Every creak of the floorboards, every unfamiliar face in the street, every knock at the door, it all brought back the same thought. What if he comes back? For decades, she lived in hiding, choosing anonymity over exposure, always haunted by the possibility that Bishop could one day walk free and find her. Time passed, but grief and anger remained. Nicola's and Karen's families fought relentlessly for justice, and in the background, the law itself was shifting. In 2005, the United Kingdom abolished the rule of double jeopardy, a legal safeguard that had previously prevented anyone from being tried twice for the same crime. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, the possibility of retrying Bishop for the babes in the Wood murders emerged. This change, coupled with advances in DNA technology, reignited the investigation. Items once thought useless suddenly became critical. A blue sweatshirt overlooked in the 1987 trial held microscopic traces of DNA that spoke louder than words ever could. Science didn't lie. The evidence tied Russell Bishop to the murders of Nicola Fellows and Karen Hadaway. In 2018, more than 30 years after the murders, Bishop was finally dragged back into court. For Nicola's and Karen's families, the wait had been a lifetime. For Rachael, it was the moment when her darkest fears began to lift. She did not testify this time. Her identity was still hidden. Her life lived in the shadows. But her courage decades earlier had paved the way to this trial. Without her survival, Bishop may never have been brought down. The courtroom was heavy with grief and rage as the evidence was laid bare. Witnesses, scientists, investigators, all painted a picture of a predator who had slipped through justice's fingers once before, but would not again. This time, the jury saw the truth. Russell Bishop was found guilty of the murders of Nicola and Karen. The weight of justice fell upon him at last. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 36 years. It was a verdict that came too late for 2 young girls and their families, but it was justice nonetheless. For Rachael, it was the first time in her life she could breathe without the shadow of his name looming over her. The man who had haunted her thoughts, whose face had been carved into her nightmares, would never walk free again. In 2022, news broke that Russell Bishop had died in prison from cancer. The monster was gone, and for the first time, Rachael chose to step forward. She revealed her identity to the world, no longer the faceless child survivor, but a woman reclaiming her story. She spoke of the years she lived in fear, of whispering to herself that he couldn't know she was alive, of carrying trauma that never truly healed. Her words were heavy, raw, and filled with the weight of survival. She described the constant tension of living while knowing the man who tried to kill her once might one day come back. Yet she also spoke with incredible strength. She had survived the unspeakable. She had grown into adulthood, carrying scars invisible to the eye but undeniable to the soul. And in surviving, she became the living proof of Bishop's guilt, the survivor who ultimately caught a killer. Nicola and Karen never had the chance to grow up, to dream, to live. Their families bore the unfillable void of their absence, but because of Rachael's survival, their killer was finally named and punished. It is a story of horror, but also of resilience, of how a 7-year-old girl, broken but alive, carried the power to change the course of justice, of how the whisper, "He can't know I'm alive," turned into the declaration, "I survived and I will be heard." Today, Rachael's name stands not only as a reminder of the brutality she endured, but also of the strength that saved her life and brought long-delayed justice to 2 families who had waited too long. Russell Bishop's crimes destroyed innocence, but they did not destroy the will to fight for truth. And in the end, truth prevailed. The legacy of this case is written in tears, in grief, and in survival. For Nicola and Karen, it is a memory that will never fade. For Rachael, it is a lifelong battle against fear, but also a testament to the power of survival. And for all of us, it is a chilling reminder that monsters can walk in plain sight, but so too can heroes. Because sometimes, the smallest survivor can carry the greatest strength. Thank you for staying with this story. Share in the comments what moved you most, what kind of cases you'd like to see in the future, and what you take away from these stories. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next case, and share this video to keep these voices remembered.